So this is basically, I wouldn't call it a review, but it's just kind of an overview, I guess, of Witch's Brew. It's Magical Cocktails by Stephen Nichols and Sean Engel. Basically, look at this table of contents. It's pretty cool. It's just a bunch of cocktails, and they're witchy themed. It's really neat. It's um, we have some based on like this one is the Birth of Venus. This next one is based on a crystal, and then this one is the Devil, which is a tarot card. There's more tarot cards. We have the Lovers as well. The Crystal Ball. There's like scrying ones in here. I think the scrying one's my favorite. It's literally like a scrying mirror. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. The scrying mirror, but it's like in a cocktail. Yeah, there's just a bunch of really cool themed. There's the Lovers one that I was talking about earlier. But anyway, today we're going to do the Astral Projection cocktail from this book, and that's the great thing about kitchen witchcraft, that you can make food and it'll have intention. So for our ingredients, it says we're going to start with 4 ounces of hot water and chamomile. Basically, you're going to make chamomile tea, but it also asked for mugwort as a tincture for 2 drops of that, but I don't have it, so I'm going to make mugwort and chamomile as a tea. Then I'm going to add wormwood as a tincture, which, yeah, wormwood is one of the replacements for mugwort, so it shouldn't be a problem. That's kind of what witchcraft is all about. It's not about buying all these things you don't need. It's about finding what you can and using it. Then we have 2 ounces of bourbon whiskey. I have a vanilla one, which will sweeten out that bitter mugwort we're about to add. It calls for 1 ounce of honey, but I'm going to use agave syrup. And then we have the recipe calls for 2 dashes of orange bitters, but I like to do 3, so that's just a preference thing. You guys can do as much as you want. So let's get started. So what called my attention about this recipe was that, well, obviously it's astral travel and I want to do that, but it's kind of like an old-fashioned, and so I have the hot water here that they told us to add, but I don't really like my old-fashions hot. I'm also scared that having hot chamomile with honey, or in my case agave, will make it taste like when you're sick and you have to drink chamomile tea and other kind of teas with honey, so I'm just going to ice this guy. It does call for 4 ounces, so we're going to measure that, but I probably won't do all 4 because that seems like a lot of chamomile and I don't want it to taste like a tea. So I'm just going to do 2 ounces of the chamomile mugwort tea that I have here, and then we're going to do 2 ounces of the bourbon whiskey, so it'll be kind of like even amounts. So I have added ice into my shakers. Yeah, we're just gonna measure out 2 ounces of this so it doesn't overpower the whiskey. If you are gonna work with hot water like I'm doing, you really want to make sure that it's cool before you shake it, because you risk the shaker popping open basically and spilling everywhere, and you don't want that, obviously. So yeah, just make sure that it's nice and cool before you shake it, or you can just wait for the tea itself to cool down before you pour it in. So now we're doing our 2 ounces of bourbon. It's a vanilla bourbon, so this one is a little sweeter. Looking back on it now, I wish I hadn't added agave, which is funny because I didn't even use the entire 1 ounce that I asked for. I did like 3/4 because I ran out. So yeah, that's probably what I would say. If you're going to use a sweeter bourbon, maybe you don't need to add sweetness. It depends on your palate. Again, the original recipe calls for 2 dashes, but I like adding 3. And then I forgot to add the wormwood tincture, so, just add that in here and then shake it. And in case you're not familiar with bartending stuff, you just want to wait until the shakers kind of frost over like they do here. So now you're going to take your strainer and you're going to strain the concoction out into a whatever. I would have liked a rocks glass, but mine had a crack in it, so we're going to use a teacup today, and we're going to pour it over fresh ice. You can use the ice that you have in the cup if you want. It's not a big deal, but traditionally you wouldn't. And then I'm going to garnish it for, being fancy and over the top, so if you want to do that, you can, and if not, then you can stop the cocktail here. So you would typically use an orange and cut off an orange peel, but I only had a mandarin. So again, using what you have, I guess this would be sweeter than a typical orange, but I basically just want to squeeze the oils out, and then you can run it through the rim of the glass that you have, or in my case, a teacup. And then sometimes people would just twist it and then throw it in the cocktail. I'm gonna be extra and just cut it. It doesn't add to the flavor, it's just to do a thing. And yeah, I would put that on a toothpick. You guys can see how I'm cutting it here. And then I'd add a cherry to it. And typically I'd like Luxardo cherries, but they're like freaking an arm and a leg. So we're just gonna do the Target brand cherries and pray they don't have formaldehyde, and it should be fine. Yeah. So here's the finished product. A little fancy pants, basically astral projection, old fashioned. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy. And here's me adding the freaking wormwood because I totally forgot to do that. Don't judge me. Just your friendly reminder that this is not professional at all, but enjoy!